To start your Roy Lichtenstein inspired onomatopoeia word, you're going to press the plus button in the corner and press screen size. Once you're here, you have to think of an idea you want to do, and then just write the word that you pick. For this, I want you to do the sketch in one of these sketching brushes. It could be any of them, it's up to you. I like 6B and peppermint. I'm gonna use the same word I used in class, the word zip. This you're just going to write out large. Once you've written out your word like normal, you're going to add a new layer and trace carefully around the word. This is your sketch, so it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but you do want to get it as close to possible. You also want to make sure as you are outlining your word that you keep the same distance from your word or your letter to your tracing around. So for example, I would want to keep the distance between here and here close to the distance between here and here. You want all of your outside outlines to kind of be the same distance all the way around. Now, I'm doing this freehand for like this part right here, but if you wanted to, you can use your straight line tool to help you in places that are supposed to be straight, okay? So I'm tracing around all the letters. If your letters overlap each other, that is okay too. Okay, and now I am done outlining the word. Once you've outlined your word, you can turn off your first layer. Go back to your outline layer. And you can just add in any holes in the letters, like the letter P will need one, or if you had like a letter O, E, D, letters like that, you will have to add that in yourself. Okay, now that you've made your base bubble letter, you have to think, how are you gonna make this word look like its meaning? And there's a ton of different ways we could do this. One way I like to think about this is like, maybe there's certain letters that you could replace with something in the meaning. So for example, when I think of the word zip, I might think of a zipper. So maybe there's something here that I can replace with a literal zipper. So like, for example, this I, maybe it's an I that is a zipper and it's like opening up, and I can sketch that in. So I'm gonna draw inside the I zipper lines. And then I'm also going to have to erase certain parts of my sketch too. That's why we're doing this as a sketch, because you might have to erase certain lines and then later you can redraw them and they'll be nice and crisp instead of weird because you've outlined them and then erased, and then your lines get all wonky. I'm gonna have this side opening up. And you could go crazy with this. Like I can make this a zipper that opens. I could make the Z a zipper that opens. And I could go crazy with that. Now, there's a lot of different other things I could have done instead also. Instead of making this a zipper, let me undo all of that. I could use distort tool. So for example, let's say instead of thinking of a literal zipper, and I was thinking of the meaning zip as in zipped across a room fast, right? I could instead use tools like the move tool and distort my word. Like maybe I'm trying to make my zip look like it's going really quick and it's zipping along. And then maybe I'm also adding in lines where it looks like it's going fast, right? Now, if you do something like this, right, and you realize your words don't really fit in, you could also use the move tool, go to uniform, and make it smaller so what you wanted to draw could fit in. And I recommend if you change the shape of your letters, which you should be, that's the assignment, right? To erase the line in between your drawn in additions and your letters. The reason I like to do this is because now instead of it just looking like something you added to the letter, it looks like that's a part of your letter, that addition. So here, it kind of looks like this like fast lines and like that I made kind of are behind the P. Whereas if I erase this line, it kind of looks like it's a part of the letter P. There was a ton of other things I could have done too. Let's say I had a different word. I could do something like going to the adjustments panel, going to liquefy, and I can twist the word. Let's say I had the word whirlpool or something. You can push, maybe to make it look like it's going really fast. You can pinch the artwork, expand. You can add these little crystals in, and other things that you can experiment with down here too. Those are things you could do too. When you expand and do things like that, it will kind of change the pixels up a little bit, kind of makes them look a little blurry, which is why I wanted you to do a sketch first, and then later go back in and outline your drawing. So the next step is finish your drawing and come back when you're done manipulating your word. Okay, so you're ready to move on to the next part of this assignment once you have finished your entire word and changing it up. So once you've done that, you are going to add a new layer, and you are going to grab the monoline brush, and that is under calligraphy. Here you could decide how large or how thin you want your lines to be. One more thing I want you to do before you move on is go to your sketch layer and press the letter N. Once you press the letter N, you could change the opacity, and this makes it a little bit easier to see what you have to outline. Make sure to go back to layer 2 before you move on. Here, now I'm just going to carefully outline my drawing. I would suggest areas that are not as detailed, you can do in a thicker line, and areas that have a little bit more detail, like here, to do in a thinner line. Like this wouldn't really work very well for that part of this artwork. When you're done outlining, then you can go on to the next step. Okay, once you finish your outlines, you can turn off your sketch layer and create a new layer. Remember, before you're dropping in colors, you have to make your line layer, your outline layer, you have to reference it. Now you can start to drop in colors you want for your drawing. So I'm going to start dropping in some colors. Okay, to make this artwork look more cartoony, well, not cartoony, but to make this artwork look more like a comic book, like Roy Lichtenstein did, we are going to use Ben-Day dots. You can find a texture that is like that underneath the textures category. If you go to Rosette, you can use this as your Ben-Day dots. You can use Ben-Day dots kind of like how you would use a shading brush. So let's say I grab an orange, which is an analogous color to yellow, and I used a Rosette brush. I can add in highlights and shadows. Now, when I'm adding them in, you can see that they are leaving the shape. So again, you need to go to your color layer and click Alpha Lock. Once you've done this, you can select a light source. Like let's say I pretend my light's coming from the side. I can add in some Ben-Day dots as shadows. If you press down too hard on this brush, you won't really be able to see the dots. So make sure you don't press down too hard when using this brush. Okay, Once you finish adding Band-Aid dots into your onomatopoeia word, you have to start thinking about your background. You're not going to just turn in a white page, okay? So you can add a layer, use your finger to grab the layer, and move it underneath your outline and your color layer. Here, you can start dragging in some background colors to experiment with. One thing you are going to want to do is unreference your outline layer and then drop in your background. Okay, now that you've done that, you can add in abstract features. Like let's say you, I don't know, put in some type of pattern on a new layer. Like let's say white. You can go in here, add abstract patterns in the background. You can also, distort and warp those backgrounds. Like you can push the background. Don't forget, you could like twirl and do all those other things to the background. So I would say experiment. You could also add in other features that like might enhance your word's meaning. Like I might go in and draw some more zippers. That could be something that just adds some more visual interest. So when you are done with that, come back here and I'm going to show you how to turn in your work. Okay, once you finish your artwork, it is time to turn it in. You're going to click on the wrench in the top corner, click share, and click JPEG to turn it in. Once you are here, you're going to press save image. I know yours might look a little bit different than mine, but you're going to click on save image. It's going to look like the area over here when you go to save. Save image. Once you've done that, you're going to find Google Classroom. And I went to Google Drive. You're going to go to Google Classroom. If someone else is signed into your account, remember you have to sign them out. So press the icon in the top corner, press Manage Accounts, and press Remove this device for that person. Once it is time for you to get in, remember you have to scroll down, press Use Another Account, type in your email. Remember your email is your first name, dot your last name, at Vernon Schools, make sure you don't forget that S, .org. Then you're going to type in your password. This will be whatever your grade is, 06, 07, 08, and then your lunch code. Once you go here, you're going to go into your digital arts class, and you're going to find the Roy Lichtenstein assignment. Yours will not look the same as mine, so I'm going to try to go to one of these classes where I'm the student. Once you get into the assignment, you should see an area that says Add Work. Click Upload Photo. Once you're here, click on your artwork and press the check button at the top, or it'll say Add Work. If it asks you to do this, press Select More Photos and select your artwork one more time. And then you could press Turn In. Don't forget to sign out before you leave. Press the back button and then press the 3 little lines in the top corner. Press Home. Press your icon, Manage Accounts, and remove from this device. And you're done with the Roy Lichtenstein assignment.